Next up, we are going to have a moderated panel of some construction industry leaders where we're going to dig in and talk a little bit about the infrastructure package and the impact on various states. We have 3 participants in this. If each of them are on board and can turn on their web cameras, sincerely appreciate that, and I'll introduce each of you. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning. Good afternoon. I think we're missing Gordon here. So, but I'll go ahead and get started. So we have invited leaders from the Tennessee Roadbuilders Association, the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance, and the Construction Association of West Virginia to prepare. We prepared some pre-prepared questions that they have read over and prepared for a bit. And so we're hoping that this will be information that you can kind of find useful as you think about where you're going to be doing business in the future and the states in which we operate in. We're very honored to have all 3 of them participate. This is Virginia, West Virginia, and Tennessee is where Brown Edwards has physical presence. And so we're very honored and appreciative of these organizations. And we've been involved in these organizations, particularly West Virginia and Virginia, for a number of years, and we find value in those organizations. And we want them to tell you a little bit about themselves as well. Introducing everyone, I'll first introduce Kent Starwalt, is the Executive Director of the Tennessee Roadbuilders Association. He serves as the Executive Vice President of the Tennessee Roadbuilders Association in Nashville, and he is also a registered lobbyist for the TRBA. Prior to joining TRBA, he was a director of the Contractors Division and state activities for the ARTBA, the American Road and Transportation Builders Association in DC, for 8 years, and served as the president of the Metropolitan Washington Road and Transportation Builders Association in the District of Columbia. In 2007, Kent was the recipient of the Tennessee Society of Association Executives Association Executive of the Year Award. Kent, his wife Lisa, and son Logan reside in Franklin, Tennessee. Also with us is Gordon Dixon, who was in March 2020 was selected as the Executive Vice President of the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance. Gordon provides strategic leadership for the organization by guiding the board to identify, establish, and execute short-term objectives, long-range goals, and position the organization for future success. Gordon has over 25 years of government relations and association management experience. He has worked with local, state, and national associations on advocacy campaigns and regulatory issues to become key influencers on public policy. Prior to his term at VTCA, we worked together as well when he was at the CEO at the Associated General Contractors of Virginia. In addition, Gordon led a Virginia state agency with an annual budget of $21 million that developed and established professional regulation for 300,000 plus individuals and businesses. He is a graduate of Mary Washington College, lives in the greater Richmond area with his wife of 18 years and their 2 boys who are often found on a soccer pitch. Welcome, Gordon. And then finally, but last but not least, certainly, is Michael Clouser, who is the Executive Director of the Contractors Association of West Virginia, and it represents nearly 450 members in the building, highway, utility, and industrial contracting industry. He serves as the editor of West Virginia Construction News, the association's 85-year-old publication. In his position, he has worked 43 years with state and local governments in the West Virginia legislature to create economic development and job opportunities statewide. He's consistently worked to provide funding for West Virginia's infrastructure of roads, bridges, water, and sewer facilities and schools. Mr. Clouser is a past chairman of the West Virginia Highway Users Conference, current chairman of the West Virginia Business and Industry Council, and past president of the West Virginia Society of Association Executives. Governor-elect Jim Justice appointed him to head up the governor's transition team to studying the state's infrastructure and to the steering committee that helped promote the 2017 Roads to Prosperity $1.6 billion road bond amendment. He served 4 terms on Charleston City Council. So welcome all, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. How's everyone doing today?
Wonderful.
Very good, thank you.
Very well, thanks.
Good. Well, thank you all so much. So what I wanted to do, and as I explained to each of the participants today, we have some pre-prepared questions. And so we're just going to kind of stick with the same order if we can. So we will go with Kent, Gordon, and Michael. And so I'm going to ask each of you a question. And if you could just basically answer each of those questions, and then we'll pass that on to maybe a follow-up question, but then we'll pass that on to the next speaker. And hopefully we can talk about, we've tried to add some variety here. And this would be a great session for Q&A, similar to with Mr. Simonson, but we would love some Q&A from the group, what questions you may have. Leaders of some very important transportation organizations available at your demand to answer some questions. So I'd like to start off by each of you telling us just a little about yourself, and particularly the organization that you represent, including some information about your membership. So Kent, we'll start with you.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you all. As the bio said, I've been with the TRBA for about 25 years. Born and raised in Illinois, and worked for the Illinois DOT before I went to Washington and worked with ARTBA for about 8 years. So been down here a long time now. And I don't know if I'm still a Tennessean yet. Folks down here tell me I'm not yet, but I'm still working on it. So so TRBA, we're a statewide trade organization that represents all facets of the highway and transportation and construction industry. We're somewhat unique, and I guess us in West Virginia may be the closest thing that we literally have everybody under one arm. So we represent the asphalt, concrete, aggregates, industries, bridge and concrete. So we have all those organizations under one roof. So that there is a ready-mix group here in Tennessee, but they're the only group outside of the what I call the core industry that has separate representation. But they don't actively lobby in the General Assembly, so we are the voice and the lobbyist for the highway construction industry in Tennessee. So it's great to have everybody under one roof, and so it makes it easier when we're talking with TDOT or legislators about what's going on in the industry.
Very good. Gordon?
Hey, thanks. So with the Virginia Transportation Construction Alliance, we're a little bit like the rest of them, in that we do represent a broad coalition, not just the contractors, not just the aggregate producers, the suppliers, the vendors, but also design consultants, which gives us a unique perspective, a truly unique perspective for the state DOTs and all the state agencies to talk about those kind of components. We have a little over 300 members. And our dues structure is $850 dues, and you pay some fees on top of that if you've won some work with VDOT. So if you don't win work with VDOT or on some of the roads, then you don't pay us extra dollars. So kind of a unique format that is very attractive to people who are looking to get into the market and figure out whether or not this is the right good fit for them or not.
Very good. Thank you, Gordon. Mike?
Thank you, Billy, and thanks for the opportunity to be here today. It's a privilege for me to be here with my learned counterparts from Tennessee and Virginia. We are the Contractors Association of West Virginia, as we say routinely. Our members build West Virginia because we, like Kent, we have basically consolidated the construction industry within the umbrella of the Contractors Association of West Virginia. We are the AGC chapter for the state of West Virginia, as well as ARTMA. And our divisions within the Contractors Association include the Asphalt Pavement Association of West Virginia, the West Virginia Crushed Aggregates Council, and also the West Virginia Utility Contractors Association. And we have worked for years to try to develop that coalition, as Kent said. So when we go to our owners, whether it's the School Building Authority or our State Purchasing Division or Department of Highways and the legislature, we can speak with one voice on behalf of the construction industry in our state. We are celebrating our 100th anniversary in 2023. So we are gearing up to have a great celebration to honor the many men and women who have worked for many years to make our association what it is. So, we always appreciate Brown Edwards. You all have been a great part of our association, and Eddie Thompson and Tim George and others who are there every day when we need their help. So we sure appreciate all you do for us and our members.
Well, thank you for that. We sincerely appreciate that as well. As I was sitting and thinking, making the same person answer the question first every time doesn't seem fair at all. So I think I'm gonna change that around a little bit. So this go round on the next question, I'm gonna ask a question. We'll go by alphabetical order of last name. So Mr. Clouser, I think you come first in that order. So I'll pick a few random rules here and see if we can't spread this around. So what we are interested in, the question that I posed to each of you prior to was, how specifically will the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which I think is probably the most important thing people are wanting to find out about today, impacts the state that you are in? And is there any info on what types of projects will receive funding? And have you received any estimates as to the amount that will be allocated to your state? So we'll take that with you, Mr. Clouser.
Yes, we have, Billy, and we worked on this very closely with our congressional delegation, Senator Capito and Senator Manchin, who were very instrumental in getting the bill passed, the bipartisan bill passed in the Senate, and also working with Congressman David McKinley from West Virginia, who was one of 13 Republicans who voted for the bill. So we're going to ask Gordon and Kent to kick in some money to West Virginia, since our guys got the bill passed here. So
I told you, Manchin has a lot of power, right?
But we are going to see $6 billion come into West Virginia, and all of that will affect our members and their ability to bid and be successful on bid day. About $3 billion is going to highways. That's about a 44% increase over the current 5-year highway program, FAST Act. We've got about $500 million that's going to be for bridges. We are part of the Appalachian Regional Development Commission, one of 13 states. So we have been building 4-lane highways, corridor projects, since 1965. We have a major project called Corridor H that crisscrosses the state, which the parts that are done now probably is one of the most beautiful scenic drives in America today. If you haven't driven across it, please do so. But we're going to have about $200 million that will hopefully complete Corridor H for the most part of West Virginia. We have a lot of water and sewer needs, probably as other states. We're going to get about $500 million for water and sewer investments. Within West Virginia, obviously coal mining has been a major industry for over 100 years. And because of that legacy, we have a number of abandoned mine land sites. Senator Manchin was able to put in about $11 billion in the infrastructure bill to reclaim abandoned mine lands, as well as plug abandoned oil and gas wells. We think that's going to be about $146 million a year for 15 years. In addition to AML projects that will also can go to water projects that will for communities that have been impacted by coal mining. And then we've got about about $600 million to expand our broadband. We still have a number of areas throughout the state that do not have access to broadband. Obviously, that has come to light during COVID. And then about $40 million for airports and public transit. So obviously, we see a great influx. I listened to Ken Simonson, and we share his thoughts that it will take some time to get these projects identified, planned, designed, advertised, and constructed. But a lot of the programs we already have in place in West Virginia, especially our AML, especially our water and sewer, and we think a lot of those dollars can get on the street immediately. So we're looking forward to getting not only these projects for our members, but certainly to create economic development and create jobs throughout whole of West Virginia.
Very good, Mike. Thank you so much. Gordon, take it away.
Yeah, Billy. Unfortunately, we don't have as exciting politicians as Mike Clouser does this year. Let me tell you, they are the heartbeat of America right now. So it's kind of fun to hear and see what they've got going. Even if you can pull off a Republican in the House to vote for this is a unusual feat, right? So Mike's got the magic touch. So kudos to him for pulling all those off. But in Virginia, we're getting about 8.8 billion out of the federal funding. It's a lot like Mike said, in the different areas. There's about 577 bridges in Virginia that are classified as structurally deficient. One of the things that's unique about Virginia when it comes to bridges is the code basically says that VDOT can't start working on bridges until they become structurally deficient, or you can't allocate funds to that. So you kind of have to wait until it's almost too late to start working on that. So hopefully we can work on some things to make sure we get those bridges fixed before they start becoming structurally deficient. But that's a significant piece on that. And like Mike talked about, it hits a number of the things that were important to the airports and the roads. And 500 million is going to be going to road repair work in Virginia pretty quickly. When I say quickly, give that a grain of salt, right? Because it really doesn't ramp up until almost 2024, 2025. There's federal funding like this. There are a lot of different strings attached to it, so it can be a little tricky. However, there is some good news in this, in that project delivery and process improvement items have been put into this. And it goes back to Donald Trump's one federal decision executive order that implements some NEPA, some environmental regulations that should streamline that process, quote unquote streamline. Instead of going from 6 to 8 years, you can reduce it down to about 2 years. So hopefully that'll help the process along as it goes along. And as we kind of mentioned, this is a little bit of a delay to get the federal funding out. It's not going to be getting out right away. I think DOTs always look at the resurfacing of paving the roads kind of quickly on this. One of the things that at least the VDOT commissioner has done, and we've been meeting with him for the past several months to accelerate some other projects in anticipation of this. As he likes to say, he likes to be greedy, and he wants businesses working in Virginia before they get an opportunity to work anywhere else. So he wants them on the books. He wants them committed here in Virginia. And so they're accelerating several projects that will be hitting Design Street probably in early December of this year, and will start rolling out mid to late 2022. And it's in the realm of between $500 and $800 million worth of projects that weren't anticipated, that aren't on the books, that aren't part of the 6-year improvement plan. Smaller projects all across Virginia. It's not just in the urban crescent and the mega projects, but smaller projects, $6 million, $7 million, $10 million, maybe $15 million projects in Bristol and Roanoke and Lynchburg and elsewhere. So we are really excited about it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gordon. Kent?
I have a screen I have a PowerPoint, gentlemen.
Hand over control to Ken if you would.
I can share my screen here. All right. So Tennessee will be getting about, again, around about the 8 billion number that's been mentioned. And well, first of all, let me back up. West Virginia, Mike, thank you. It was not bipartisan vote in Tennessee. All of our Republicans, including our 2 senators, voted against the bill, and our 7 Republican members of the House also voted against the bill. We have two Democrats, and we're at least thankful that they voted for it. So we appreciate West Virginia helping us get it across the line. So you can see Tennessee's going to get about 5.8 billion for highways and bridges, an additional 300 million for our bridge program. It's not as much as the other guys talked about, but our bridge program's in a pretty good shape, and so that program is based on the condition of your bridges. About 300 million for airports, the 697 million for water and sewer. And I say at least 100 million here for broadband. That's probably going to be closer to the $300 million level, but we'll just have to see based on that grant allocation what happens. About 630 million for public transportation. We have very limited what you would consider public transportation in Tennessee, primarily some light rail in Memphis. All of the rest of it is really buses of some type in the major cities, and then we have rural transit. All 95 counties have some sort of rural van service, and then 88 million for electric vehicle charging. And we'll show a graph here in a second that the first year increase of the program is about 30% for Tennessee. This shows you the increase of the FAST Act for the life of the program for the 5 years, the increase that Tennessee will see, and then if you look at each of it broken down by the 5 years, like the increase we'll see, and again, that first year, we'll see about a 30% increase in the program. One thing to also mention about what it will bring, and this is based on a study done by ARTBA that looked at the economic impact. The fact it'll bring an additional $1.42 billion to our state gross domestic product, an increase in household disposable income, and really something that's really important is that this $248 million in state and local tax receipts that we'll see an increase in. Tennessee already enjoys anywhere between $300, $400, sometimes up to $800 million surpluses that we're seeing in our budgets right now, and so this will certainly add to that. So we appreciate that. So you can stop sharing my screen now if we want to. Then talk about, so where is the money going to go? So back in 2017, we passed the Improve Act, which was our gas tax increase. And as part of that program, we designated about 900 projects that would be funded under that. When those 900 projects are put together, there was an anticipation of about a 10 to 12 cent gas tax increase, and the fact that those projects would be completed, you know, in a 10 to 12 year period. Well, we only got a 6 cent gas tax increase. And so that put the life of completing those projects out to 20 to 25 years. And then obviously there's inflation involved in that. So we anticipate that TDOT will accelerate the funding of those Improve Act projects. In essence, they'll be able to push them through the pipeline quicker. We anticipate TDOT will be able to get the money on the street fairly quickly, since they do have many of these projects that can be ready to go and ready to bid on. And so you know, we're hopeful that that will happen, and that's where the money will go. So you know, TDOT has done a great job, and anytime they've got additional money and getting the projects out and to spend the federal dollars.
Great, thank you all very much. So kind of shifting gears a little bit, I mean, obviously each of you all are assuming additional spending in your state, and Ken spoke a little bit about the challenges that the industry is facing right now, and particularly one of those has to do with workforce. And I think we all are seeing it, the public accounting profession is seeing it, restaurants, and, the service industry is seeing it, construction is certainly had already had its challenges prior to the pandemic in terms of workforce and the challenges that happened there. I'm going to change rotation here, and I'm going to let Gordon, if you would go first, and then Kent, and then Michael. So obviously we talk about the problems, and we all know that they exist, but what are some successful approaches that you or others in your state have taken regarding some of the challenges with the labor force in your state? Obviously, it's easy to say, well, we have a problem, but what do we do about that problem? And so what are some things that you all have seen in your respective states is the question.
Hey, Billy, can we do a poll question really quick?
Absolutely can. Yes, Alexa, please go ahead and launch
Saved by the voice.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm launching an attendance poll. Just click the I'm in attendance button and we'll be able to record your attendance.
Thank you, Alexa. I always forget that.
Okay, I'll be closing the poll now. All right, it's back to you all.
Thank you. I apologize for the major fire going on in the background. If you guys get that through my microphone.
Just as long as we don't see any smoke or flames, you'll be okay.
You see smoke or flames, you won't see me, Gordon.
I hear you. I hear you. Hey,
right,
so you were asking the question about workforce and what are some solutions on that. And I'm actually going to step back to when I was at AGC, the CEO of AGC prior to this role. We recognized that was a crucial component going forward. And so I basically told the board and our members, y'all got to start paying up. That's all there is to it. And that's to be blunt on this. And that's investing in the workforce of the future. And so we developed sort of a broad bucket of the contractor of the future. That's retention first and foremost, retain our current members, making sure that the current workforce, your current employees staying and are employed. So that's a healthcare, that's a benefits piece on that. And actually it's an interesting piece because it kind of keeps the unions away when you start talking about the investing in your own workforce in Virginia, talking with regulators and such, but making sure that they're recognized as the #1 asset of any company. Second of all, it's marketing, and so we hired a full-time workforce development manager who was really working around and trying to figure out how to solve that. And so we partnered with some industries, some of our competitor organization industries, and built a marketing campaign called Build Your Future. It's Build Your Future Virginia, and it's a subsidiary of the NCCER curriculum program that is nationwide, and a lot of the high schools on career trades, trying to market getting people into the trades and understanding that the construction trades are a viable career. And so that's actually paid off a lot of benefits, and that's sort of the 50,000 foot level. But crucially, the moment is what you're doing in your own backyard as your company. And so you got to have your boots on the ground. And so one of the things we started working on is identifying task forces in different regions of the state that would be able to work with their local school systems, high school and middle schools, and partnering with them, providing those internships, but also working on apprentices where you can. Last year, I guess maybe 2 years ago, VTCA put legislation in that for the aggregate producers, you can actually hire people at the age of 16 to work on aggregate production sites. They can't necessarily work in the quarries themselves, but they can at least get the feel, the culture of the organization, and as they're being monitored, and make sure that's kind of a key component. The other piece onto this, I think this important, is we just recently, literally this week, worked on agreement with the Virginia Community College system in creating the Virginia Infrastructure Academy. It hasn't rolled out just yet. We got a grant from the Lumina Foundation out of Indianapolis, where they're going to provide about $600,000 for a pilot program to do a construction trades boot camp. This is not a 2-year degree. This is more like an 8-week, 12-week program to get people the taste of what it's like to get in the construction site. And we've partnered with Dominion Power and the Virginia Cable TV Association. Think about broadband expansion. 2 big things that legislators love to talk about are electricity companies and broadband expansion. So it's training the workforce to get those folks in there and to build the windmills out in the ocean or whatever else they're trying to do, and the solar panels and all that. We're trying to work together on those as a broader coalition, because when you get down to it, this is a big fight. And we're competing against everybody for the same talent on this. And so working collectively has been a crucial part on this. We do anticipate our new governor campaigned exclusively or pretty heavily on education and workforce education. So we do see he's going to see a good fit on this. The previous governor worked on a G3 grant program where pretty much most Virginians can get a community college degree in the career trades pretty much for free. It's, get an education, get a job, give back component, G3. So it's working out pretty well. So we're pretty excited about what's upcoming. We just got to start marketing it a little bit higher and getting that sizzle onto the steak.
Very good, Gordon. Kent, take it away.
Yes, sir. So we developed, 5-6 years ago, we adopted the Go Build Tennessee program, which is a promotion campaign to encourage people to consider the construction industry. It's got a website that talks about the various fields and the pay scales, and sort of directs them to training with the idea then that they get the training, then we would be able to hire them. That's gone okay. But we also this last year started called nowhiringtn.com, which is primarily through Facebook, but other social media channels where we advertise about the industry and what you can what you can pay and what it's about, and then it directs people to this website where they can then put up a resume or their what skills they have and what region of the state they want to work in, and then that information is then sent to the HR people in the various companies in that area or whatever is the state the person says they're willing to work in, which then connects that potential employee with the HR folks. And so the idea is then they can then interact and decide if they're do an application or follow up and that kind of stuff. We've had some success with that. COVID has made that a little bit difficult in that some folks were using it, to be quite honest with you, as justification back to their departments of labor to say that they were looking for a job. But it has been successful, and we're going to continue to do that again next year. Again, as we can get the face of the industry before as many people as we can. So those are the two big things we've talked about. We've also talked about trying to develop some training programs within our community colleges. And so that's gone, again, that started sort of right before COVID. And so that's sort of been put on hold as we try to work on that. But that's going to be a major component of what we're going to try to do, is to really look at training, specifically, operator training, which is where we really need a lot of folks.
Absolutely. Sounds like you're both very busy. Mr. Clouser, I'm sure you've been busy as well. So if you'd share what's going on in West Virginia with workforce.
Well, we, like Tennessee and Virginia, we work with our community colleges, and a lot of our issues also have been put on hold with COVID, but we have started back up, and we have met with our chancellor, and she is very excited about getting in construction programs into our community technical colleges around the state, and we are pretty much ready to go on board with that. And then also we have a Build West Virginia to try to promote construction as a career to high schools, and hopefully we're going to get that down into junior high as well. But one thing we did embark upon about 3 years ago, and has been pretty successful for a lot of our members, and that is working with our West Virginia National Guard. We've always had a good relationship with them on their programs and working with them, but they were getting to the point where a lot of Guard personnel were going to be mustering out, and they were looking for opportunities for those people in other industries, and they came to us and said, these are great employees, obviously been in the Guard for years. What opportunities do we have for them for the construction industry? And maybe fast forward, we ended up coming up with a heavy equipment operators class. And we've been operating that about 3 years out of their training center in Camp Dawson, West Virginia, which is a great facility, modern facility in the eastern part of our state. And our members, as soon as these men and women are graduate out of that class, they have gotten jobs with our members. Since then, we've added 2 programs. One is the Guard has always had what they call the Challenge Academy, and it's for young people, usually high school, either dropouts or certainly academically challenged, or maybe don't have a lot of direction. They've been coming to the Guard to go through about a 6-month program to try to give them direction. And so we have added the construction equipment, heavy operating equipment, to the Challenge Academy. 2 years ago, our governor started a program called Jobs for Hope, which is basically geared to people with addiction issues, either drugs or alcohol. And we have since opened that program up to those participants in the heavy equipment. And our members attend every graduation. Usually, a lot of the people are hired before they even graduate. We had a little issue with retention. Someone would come on our members' job or into our companies, work 3 or 4 or 5 months after they've been trained, after they've been going through all the orientation, and decided construction is not what they would care to do. So to help that process a little bit, we're going to start implementing a program where contractors, the first 6 months of these students' employment will be picked up by the state. So the contractor can work them for 6 months, get fully reimbursed for their wages, and then hopefully after 6 months, these people know whether or not construction is the career they want to pursue. We are now getting ready to expand the curriculum at the Guards facility. We hope to expand the masonry, electrical, carpentry, and I think we're going to look at one other building aspect as well. So obviously it's an issue that our members continue to have on a daily basis with the infrastructure bill. Certainly will exacerbate that issue. So obviously we think workforce development will be a #1 issue that our association will work on over the near future.
Very good. Very good. Okay, so the next round here, we'll do a poll question after this question. I'm actually going to combine the 2 questions I sent to you guys, just in the interest of time here a little bit. But if we would, Kent, if you would go first, and then Mike, and then Gordon. So I suspect that they're both kind of one and the same, and that's why I'm going to combine the questions a little bit. And so the questions are, what do you anticipate as some of the largest financial challenges that is facing your membership? Obviously, examples: wage and price material escalation. And as a follow-up to that, because they matter, what efforts have been made in your state to communicate with the customers, for all, generally the state DOT, regarding the challenges, the material shortages and the price escalations, the impact it's having on your members, and if you've had those communications with those customers, particularly the state DOT, how those conversations have gone? And I'll tell you what prompted me that question was, Kent, you all sent out a survey to your members, which I received a copy of, regarding this very subject. And so if you could just talk about a little bit about what the largest financial challenges are facing your membership, and then again, particularly with regard to price increases, what kind of luck you've had in communicating that to the people that pay the bill. So I'll let you take that away.
Sure. By the way, just back to the previous question, our DOT works with the Department of Correction to do an on-the-job training program, and while they're basically in prison, and then towards the end of their term, they're actually coming out, and the Department of Corrections is bringing them to job sites where they actually get to work for our contractors, and then they literally go back to jail that night, kind of thing. And so we're working on that program. It's been pretty good, but at least, and we've hired a number of people out of that. So that's one other sort of workforce thing that we've been working on. The other thing too is we just completed our prevailing wage survey. We have a state little Davis-Bacon, so to speak, and our prices, or the wages, went up about 4 to 5%. We're really capped at about 6% is what we can do on an annual basis. But our unskilled labor rate now is over $16 an hour. So again, we're just trying to get wages up to make it attractive for people to work in the industry. Specifically with regard to what are the challenges, obviously, that wages are an issue. Material escalations that we're seeing, chain supply issues are all impacting the projects. The bigger issue is obviously, as prices increase, has the DOT taken those into consideration as they look at new bids coming in, and we're talking with them about that to make sure they understand that that is having an impact, and therefore projects are going to cost more. So yes, we did survey our members with regard to what they were seeing with material escalations. It was a survey that we stole from Florida, the Florida DOT, who had sent out to their members based on a request from the Florida Transportation Builders Association to try to get some relief, primarily for the subcontractors, right, for the guardrail guys and those kind of people who are getting hit by these huge price increases, and with the idea of maybe some kind of reimbursement. And Florida continues to work with their DOT to see if they will participate in that. Georgia has also done the survey. Georgia's waiting on Florida. We're waiting on Georgia and Florida to see what's going to happen. But what the survey has shown is that we have seen in lots of areas, 100% increases in some of the materials that are in our projects. And we're really concerned about, many of those subcontractors, many who are DBEs, for their ability financially to be able to hold on. Can they survive with price increases that they're getting every 2 weeks for projects that they bid 2 years ago? And so the question is, what have we been successful? I'll have to say that TDOT sort of says, okay, we hear you. They kind of shake their head. And then when there's a request for any of this kind of stuff, it's, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And so, whether it's a time extension for the fact that you had your paving crews out for 2 weeks because somebody got COVID, right? The whole crew has to go away. Or you had a part on a shuttle buggy that you couldn't get for a month. And so therefore you couldn't pave. All those kind of things, the DOT has simply said, yeah, we know there are issues, but too bad. A completion date's a completion date, costs are costs, the cost of doing business. And so there hasn't been much sympathy and or action on the DOT at this point to help try to solve a problem that is, not the industry's fault.
Understand. Mike, you want to take it from your side?
Well, we did a survey also, and I think we stole it from Virginia or Tennessee as well. But yeah, it just shows we all work together when we've got issues affecting the industry. I can call Gordon and I can call Kent, and we try to help each other in order to help our members here. But our survey showed the very same thing. We immediately met with all of the state agencies, purchasing, which is mostly building projects, our school building authority, Department of Highways, all of our water and sewer agencies, to share with them and to make sure they understand what their bidders are dealing with and what their existing contractors or construction contracts are dealing with. We were able to get our Department of Administration to agree to a clause that would be put in future projects, not existing projects, but future projects. And basically, if the contractor can prove that the price of a item or a subcontract has gone up from the time of bid to the actual award, if they can document that, show that, then the owner will look at that. No guarantees that they will give them additional dollars, but at least it starts a dialogue. And in some cases, we have been able to document and prove and get additional dollars before the project goes to construction. We have been, and the Department of Highways, our Department of Highways has not necessarily, much like Tennessee, has signed on to give additional dollars, but I think we have gotten most every agency in the state to eliminate liquidated damages when there are completion issues due to material or whatever reason. So while it's a more difficult more difficult to get additional dollars, we have found it fairly easy to get an extension of time and a suspension of liquidated damages here. But the issue that we're working on now, particularly as it relates to our water and sewer projects, because we have such a long lag time from the time the projects are identified, planned, approved, designed, getting out to construction, it could be 2 or 3 years. So all of the water and sewer projects with the pipe prices have just come in just way over budget, which further delays the award of those contracts. So I think our Infrastructure Council and our Water Development Authority, well, I know that they are going back to all their engineers and say, give us updated estimates so we can know exactly what we're dealing with. Hopefully we can get additional dollars to make the project go and we can get them done faster. But I'll listen to Ken Simonson as to And I saw the poll as to when your participants on the seminar today, Billy, thought we may see some resolve. And it seems like 2023 is before anyone sees or has any confidence that we will see any movement in the positive on this.
Absolutely. Gordon?
Yeah, so we're doing all the above too. So we're all kind of in that same boat. A couple things I would add on this. Obviously when COVID came through, we advised our members to file NOIs with VDOT kind of right away, just to kind of hedge their bets in case they needed. We do anticipate folks filing claims on this as COVID kind of continues down. I hope the politicians and the federal bureaucrats understand that the mass infusion up front isn't all that's needed. It's not just a one-time mass infusion. Don't flood they flood the entire market with so much money, because I do think there are going to be some residual results of this. You referenced a lot of the SWAM vendors really struggling right now. They don't have what few employees they did have. They have half that now, right? So you got a lot of those issues going on, and we're all the primes are contingent on those SWAMs to complete the jobs in order to stay compliant with the federal highway DBE goals and so forth. So that's always a constraint. Virginia, of course, is raising its minimum wage through all of this. So that's another little factor. Doesn't really directly impact us, but certainly indirectly impacts us as they raise the minimum wage. It's going to go up again in 2022. They'll settle down for a little while, and then they'll come back and reevaluate what happens in that. So there are a number of issues on that. And then I think the other fear on this is with the dollars of IIJA coming in, every state's going to be getting about the buckets of dollars coming about the same time. So everybody's going to want to be buying the same stuff about the same time. I think back to this past winter when the cold storms hit Texas and the power outages, and that DuPont paint company went down for a while, and that really impacted us all. Well, in Virginia, the VDOT self-imposed deadline to finish all of your painting was Monday, November 15th. VDOT sped that up. You had the paint shortage going on. They shortened the paving schedule this year again. And so it's a perfect storm. And so you have a lot of folks who, they got the pavement out, they just didn't get the striping and painting done. So you've got a lot of dark streets out there right now, and so some angry legislators who have some angry constituents. So there are a number of different pieces on that are other challenges that we're trying to figure this out as it goes along. So on that, one of the things that we've been able to do is to encourage VDOT to stay flexible. During COVID, they stayed flexible. We got them to extend lane closures for longer because there were fewer people on the roads. We were able to do some things like that. And so we're encouraging VDOT to continue to maintain those COVID flexibility mindsets when they can. They recognize, fortunately, industry success is their success. So it's a mutually beneficial program. And so we're somewhat hopeful we can get some resolution on this.
Very good. Very good. Alexa, why don't you launch a poll question real quick, if you would?
The poll has been launched. Give it a few more seconds. And we just have one more to do, Billy, before we end the session.
Okay, we'll do it right at the end, Alexa. That sounds good.
All righty. I'm closing the poll now.
Okay. All right.
Back to you all.
All right. Gordon, if it's okay, I'm going to come back to you this time, and then we'll go to and Michael. So, interestingly enough, each of your states have its own set of political things going on. You have the power in the Senate, particularly from Senator Manchin in West Virginia, and what happened with the transportation bill with the Republicans, as Mike mentioned. In Tennessee, you have a lot of COVID regulations that are opposite the other states' COVID regulations. And then in Virginia, you kind of had a game plan and kind of knew where you was headed in terms of being the state that it was. And the election, I think, clearly showed us that that was maybe now we're in a different direction. And so each state, I guess, is my point, has its own set of regulatory benefits and challenges. And so the question that I have for you, Gordon, and for each of you is, what do you anticipate the largest challenge in terms of the regulatory climate is that's facing your membership? And that could obviously be OSHA and vaccines, but from a regulatory standpoint, talk to us a little bit about what you see the biggest struggles are for your membership that they have to be focused on in the regulatory environment.
Yeah, Billy, I appreciate that. This is a big, hairy mess of regulations that we're all dealing with, not just federally, nationally, but also at very different state levels. So you're on the federal level, you've got the OSHA with its emergency temporary standards on around COVID. You've got President Biden's mandate about either get the shot or get the weekly vax test and wear masks for companies that are 100 or more employees, and what does that do for smaller employees, and how many people are going to be jumping off ship on those types of things. Virginia was when the Democrats took over in 2020, both in the House and in the Senate and in the governor's mansion, there were some folks who were saying, yeah, we want to become the new California of the East Coast. And they really tried to push that. You know, Governor Northam really wanted to come out of the gate and establish emergency temporary standards around COVID, even before there was any science or rationale for what was going on that. And in fact, his health and safety board went so far overboard that he had to find a way to kind of replace several of those folks because they were going a little further than what he even wanted. He's been fortunate enough to have been able to replace some of those folks. And they've been able to back down on some of those regulations, but those are certainly out there. This is the same board that wants to establish heat standards for the workplace. So literally, when it's above 85 degrees, they want a 15-minute work break every hour and mandatory shade breaks. So for you know, it's really those kind of things you're trying to deal with, and how do you pour concrete and asphalt when you've got to take mandatory breaks every so often. So those types of regulations are constantly out there. There are folks who want to mandate apprentices for every construction job site out there. That's another regulatory issue that we're trying to deal with. And so within the Department of Labor, we think we're going to get that back. The pendulum has swung, as you kind of referenced. Virginia just had a election where not only did the Democrat governorship switch to a Republican, but the House also flipped back to Republican. And so we are anticipating some calming effects of that. The choice component for the governor is he gets to appoint various different people to all these boards. So a lot of these new folks will be coming in and with a different philosophy and mindset going forward. So we think that on the state set, it's going to be a little bit more friendly, but maybe it's still going to be treacherous to mine through, because the other advocate side isn't far away. They're still on the field, and they're still advocating for their point. Traditionally in Virginia, when one party flipped, it kind of stayed that way for a couple decades. The Republicans have been in control the past 2 decades. Prior to that, the Democrats were in control for the past 60 decades. Quite frankly, we see it going much more like the way Congress is, where it's going to flip back and forth, and it's just going to kind of swing back and forth. It's going to be a 52-48, 1 or 2 vote margin going forward on these things. So we're not going to go far from where we currently are on a lot of things. One final piece that I think you need to throw in here is on the national side is the Army Corps of Engineers has stopped issuing permits on certain components tied to the Clean Water Act. And so wetlands dredging in the waters of the United States is an issue that's a significant regulatory issue, whether you're vertical or horizontal construction. And until that gets resolved, that's really going to slow a lot of things down directly for the construction industry. And I'm going to stop there and let some other folks kind of chime in and bring more joy to what we're talking about here.
The man confused, Gordon, the man confused. All right, Kent, you want to go ahead and take it away for your state?
Well, after listening to Gordon there talk about his state was put into place. Now I understand why I'm seeing Virginia license plates in my neighborhood. So, obviously the ETS, where you have the federal contractor mandate, and then you had the ETS coming down for the 100 employer. And so our supermajority Republican legislature, who was tired of school districts doing mask mandates, came in and had a COVID special session and prohibited mask mandates, prohibited vaccine mandates, did have some exceptions to that, where if you were a federal contractor, so therefore you wouldn't lose your federal contract, then you could have a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. But they did things like, public schools couldn't have a mask mandate, but private schools could. And the real issue they put on with the business community was in trying to figure out, what's the business community supposed to be doing? And to be quite honest with you, that the way that the General Assembly acted was probably the least business-friendly legislature in the 25 years I've been here. And it's just been the last 12 or so, maybe 14, that the Republicans have been in control. So 25 years ago I was here, we had Democratic-controlled legislatures. They weren't as anti-business as this COVID special session was. They created a private right of action for employees if you made them get a vaccine, where they could then file suit, which was 180 degrees from what we passed liability legislation just not even a year ago to protect employers from that type of thing. So it was very discouraging that the General Assembly came in and did what they did, because it really puts, with the federal contractor mandate, and we don't have a lot of federal contractors, but if the ETS had gone into place, you're really asking businesses in Tennessee, are they supposed to break federal law? Or are they supposed to break state law? And that's not fair. The joke we've kind of been making is that you probably don't want to break federal law, because federal law, there's no parole, right? If you break federal law. So just again, a little legal humor there, but so it's business in a bad spot right now. Hopefully the federal ETS won't go into place. That'll certainly help ease some of the issues that we have. And then nobody likes mandates. The construction doesn't want to mandate their people do anything. They're just trying to build projects the best they can, and just hire people the best they can as well, without having to put all the other issues out there. I agree with the Corps of Engineers stuff is a huge issue. Beyond that, from a regulatory standpoint, our Environment Conservation Department has been relatively good to work with, based on some changes. So we don't see a lot of issues there. It's really not a regulatory issue, but where we've really seen some slowdown in projects has really been on the right-of-way side. Because of COVID, the DOT couldn't go into people's houses, and so that really delayed getting projects done and ready for bid. But again, not necessarily a regulatory climate, but that did create some problems. So overall, the regulatory climate is good, with the exception of this back and forth where we're seeing on the COVID stuff at this time.
Can tell you, as an employer in all three of your states, it creates challenges. That's for sure. So for sure. Thank you, Kent. Mike, want to share a little bit about the regulatory environment in West Virginia?
We just had a special session last month dealing with financial issues, and at the very last minute, a bill was put in dealing with employers and not being able to mandate masks for vaccinations. So we weren't sure where that bill came from, but obviously it was from Tennessee. So we've got employers who don't know which way to turn now. And fortunately, even though the entire business community opposed that legislation, it did pass by one vote in the Senate and a little bit bigger margin in the House. But the one positive is that the implementation was delayed until January. So at least we have some time to figure out what impact it is going to have on our members and how they will operate on the job site. But I will agree with Gordon and the WOTUS, Waters of the United States issue, and the court ruling from August, which basically said that the current or the previous Trump water protection rule was inconsistent to the Federal Clean Water Act. I think that's going to reverberate on many projects throughout West Virginia, especially with the new funding from the infrastructure bill. As I mentioned, we are hoping to build and complete our Appalachian Corridor system. And the issue with that is that the reason it is not completed in 2021 is that the environmental community used every environmental roadblock to stop and delay construction in the 80s. And Department of Highways probably over the years has spent $100 million just in either legal fees or mitigation just to get the projects completed that we have done so far. And now the remaining parts of the road, which is only about 15 miles out of a 200-mile section, is the toughest, hardest portion of the project. We just let a $147 million bridge project last week for Corridor H, but the section that's left goes through national forest, and obviously the environmental community is going to be looking at anything and everything to delay or at least put up roadblocks to stop that. And I think, if we're going to look at going back to every stream, every wetland that is not even connected to the actual project, certainly when we look at our Corridor H project, we also have the Coalfield Expressway, which is in the southern part of West Virginia, also the King Coal Highway, which is also in the southern part of West Virginia. Even though the infrastructure bill kept in the Trump timelines for getting permits approved, I think this court ruling and now EPA and the Corps wanting to go back to pre-2015 and how they actually determine what is considered a navigable water or a stream is going to delay these projects even further. We even have problems within the state of West Virginia, just within our state Environmental Protection Agency trying to get projects permitted. So I think we're going to be watching that very closely. Plus, we're going to be working with our state regulators and our Department of Highways to make sure that these projects do not come to a stop before we even start construction here.
Yeah, I think Gordon could probably say the same about his Department of Environmental Quality. I've said in more than a few conversations on that. So
one or two, no doubt.
Okay, well, I had one more question, but I think we've hit our limit here. And so what we're going to do, I appreciate and thank you all for your time. And I know the people on our conference found this valuable. I found it very valuable. And so I just can't thank you all enough for your time. And we appreciate our membership in these organizations and all you do for the industry that we also serve and love. So thank you all so much. We sincerely appreciate it.